you mentioned Netflix, Dre, and that look, here's the thing, like, and Alia, you can jump in on this too if you want. Like with Netflix, they have a real issue though, I think, with like, oh man, like, because a lot of these studios, like, like Disney, Comcast, Warner, they're all kind of letting their Netflix licensing deals run out. We saw this with the Marvel stuff, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Punisher, all that. Netflix has a real problem, I think, long term. Right now, they're fine. Netflix right now is the freaking king, and they have amazing original content. I've been addicted to that show, Ozark. Not family friendly, by the way. So just so you guys know at home, if you're going to watch it, don't watch it with your kids. It's not family friendly. But Netflix has some fantastic original programming. But the problem is they're going to be bleeding out bad when all these studios start pulling out and going to their own platforms. Netflix is going to be left doing a lot of their own original stuff, and they're not going to be able to really rely on some of these studios, which is hard. But Alia, what do you think about this whole dynamic, like with the D+, Netflix, all this stuff? What are you feeling on that?
Apparently, with the recent mature Marvel ones, they didn't, from what I've read or heard in a couple of articles, Disney actually paid to get those early. They didn't
really?
Disney paid to get those early. That's reports I'm seeing. Yes.
The plot thickens.
So Chapek is up to something. I'm wondering if they may appear on Disney Plus in a tile within Marvel Mature, something like that. They might even use it to test parental. It's like a small way to test it.
Oh, wait, hang on. Making moves.
Some form of parental control, maybe just like a small way to test it. I won't be surprised if something like that happens quickly, because I read it in a couple of articles that this is happening earlier than Netflix expected, which means the only conclusion is Disney paid to get them early.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating. There's a couple of things at play here, because Chapek has expressed desire to have more adult-driven content on the platform, which I actually do support. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of Disney purists don't like that idea, but even Michael Eisner expanded the brand. Remember, Michael Eisner bought Miramax, which was far from family friendly. Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone. He understood the necessity of kind of branching out. As long as Chapek sort of does it like what you said, Alia, with behind a parental control and give parents that option, I'm fine with that, because really, the bulk of for me personally, anecdotally, when I'm leaving Disney Plus is to find content that's more adult driven. Like I mentioned Ozark on Netflix. I love that show. I'm not going to find that on Disney Plus, anything like that about money laundering and cartels. There's no way, but it's like, if you had the Hulu tile or something like that on Disney Plus, I wouldn't have to leave and go to Netflix as often. Right. But what are your thoughts, Ray? What are your thoughts on this whole thing? I mean, making moves on this adult content, things like that.
I think the brand association with Disney Plus is, while it is a wonderful asset when it comes to general audiences, especially families and so forth, it is kind of an inhibitor to growth when it comes to that segment of the market, right? So I think they really do want to, they want to branch out, and they're kind of in a catch-22 when it comes to that, because it's Disney Plus, right? You have a brand kind of awareness and kind of a brand association when it comes to the Disney name, right? But then you also kind of do want to get into those markets, and I'm sure Wall Street does as well. It's kind of interesting because we're seeing, in the UK, for example, a lot of people were noticing that on the UK version of Disney Plus, when it comes up, Pam and Tommy's right there, right? It's like that is right. That is a very, that's kind of an entire series made around a sex tape and all this kind of stuff. That's not necessarily what you would associate with Disney here in the States. So we already kind of see them making moves in that direction. Yeah. I think they might need to be maybe a little bit more nuanced when it comes to that, a little bit more careful when it comes to that kind of debut of that kind of content on Disney Plus itself. But like you said, Ollie, I think you make a great point in that you can kind of limit it. Maybe with parental access codes or something to kind of delineate between your child going on Disney Plus versus you going on Disney Plus. And I think it's going to be a really fascinating thing if they really did buy that content to put it on maybe Disney Plus or Hulu. That's going to be a very interesting thing. Maybe that's their way of saying, hey, look, this can be a little bit more adult oriented too, without being necessarily like Ozark, for example.
Right. And the interesting thing about the Marvel stuff is it's kind of like there's multiple layers here kind of with that, because like there's that Chapek aspect where he's, making moves.
He's making moves.
He's making moves. But then there's also this aspect of Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Feige, we've already seen Marvel sort of dip into these characters with Vincent D'Onofrio reprising his role as Daredevil in the Hawkeye show. We've already seen that. So I think Kevin Feige probably wants to get his hands on these characters, and I believe so. Daredevil made an appearance in Spider-Man: No Way Home, and what have you. So
there was when these shows were being developed, it was with the understanding that they were part of the MCU. I believe in those series they reference like the Avengers incident in New York and stuff like that. I mean, it was always from what I heard at the time that these characters were going to be integrated, were part of the MCU upon inception, creation, and production. But that kind of skewed a little bit, as we know, and maybe rights did have a part to play in that. But I think Kevin Feige, I think you're right, OG. I think he wants to get these hands on these characters, and he wants to get them back and integrate them even more, even more closer to the MCU than currently established.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating. There's so many different things going on with this. It's absolutely wild. And I think even Daddy Iger mentioned, I think back in 2018, that he really wants to bring the franchises home, right?
Yes.
Like he wants a one-stop shop, right? In terms of Marvel and all this stuff. And he's going to, so I'm sure Bob Chapek is sort of in agreement with that.